Being the mature one as a child sounds like a compliment. Responsible, dependable, wise beyond your years. But it wasn't a gift. It was a survival strategy. And the signs of growing up too fast don't show up as trauma. They show up as patterns you can't shake decades later. If you were the kid who raised yourself, who parented your parents, who had to be the adult when there wasn't one, these signs will hit different. Because being mature too early doesn't make you stronger. It makes you tired. And here are 8 ways that shows up in your life now. Sign 1. You can't ask for help without feeling guilty. You learned early that asking for things made you a burden, that needing help meant you were failing. So you became the kid who figured everything out alone, who never complained, who never asked, because the adults in your life couldn't handle their own problems, let alone yours. Now you're an adult, and you still can't ask for help, even when you're drowning, even when someone offers. Because somewhere in your brain, asking for help still feels like admitting weakness, like proving you're too much, like being the burden you spent your childhood trying not to be. You'll work yourself to exhaustion before you'll ask someone to help you move. You'll struggle in silence before you'll admit you don't know how to do something. You'll suffer alone before you'll reach out. Because the mature child learned that self-sufficiency isn't a choice. It's survival. Studies on parentification show that children who take on adult responsibilities develop hyper-independence. They don't just prefer doing things alone. They're physically uncomfortable receiving help. Their nervous system treats support like a threat, because when you're a kid and help never comes, you learn that needing it is dangerous. Sign 2. You feel responsible for everyone's emotions. You were the family therapist at age 8, the peacekeeper at 10. The one who could read the room and knew exactly what to say to keep everyone calm. You managed your parents' moods. You soothed your siblings. You made yourself small so others could be big. And now, you still do it. You walk into a room and immediately scan for who's upset. Who needs managing? Who needs fixing? You can't just exist. You have to monitor, adjust, regulate. Because your childhood taught you that other people's emotions are your responsibility. And if something goes wrong, it's your fault. You apologize when other people are upset even when you didn't cause it. You feel guilty when someone's having a bad day like you should have prevented it. You take on emotional labor that isn't yours because somewhere deep down, you still believe that keeping everyone happy is your job. Research on emotional parentification shows these children develop what's called compulsive caretaking. They don't choose to manage others' emotions. They compulsively do it. Their brain wired itself to equate other people's emotional stability with their own safety. So they can't stop, even when it's destroying them. Sign 3. You struggle to relax or have fun. Play wasn't part of your childhood, at least not for long. Because there was always something that needed doing, someone who needed taking care of, a problem that needed solving. You learned that fun was frivolous, that relaxation was lazy, that if you had time to play, you should be doing something productive. Now, you're an adult with free time and you don't know what to do with it. Hobbies feel pointless. Relaxation feels wrong. Fun feels like something you have to earn and you never feel like you've earned it. So you work. You stay busy. You find problems to solve. Because that's what feels normal. You can't watch TV without also doing something productive. You can't take a day off without feeling guilty. You can't enjoy anything without the nagging voice that says you should be doing something useful. Because the mature child was never allowed to just be a kid. And the adult still isn't allowed to just be. Psychologists call this achievement addiction. People who were parentified as children often become workaholics as adults. Not because they love work, but because rest feels dangerous. Like they're failing. Like something bad will happen if they stop being useful. Sign 4. You're uncomfortable with vulnerability. Being Being vulnerable as a child wasn't safe. Crying meant you were dramatic. Having needs meant you were needy. Showing fear meant you were weak. So you learned to shut it down, to be strong, to handle things, to never let anyone see you struggling. Now you can't cry in front of people without feeling ashamed. You can't admit when you're scared without feeling weak. You can't show any emotion that isn't composed and controlled, because vulnerability still feels like danger. Like giving someone ammunition, like proving you're not actually as mature as you pretended to be. You're the friend everyone leans on, but you never lean on anyone. You give advice but never ask for it. You support others but refuse support yourself, because the mature child learned that vulnerability equals abandonment. That if you show you're struggling, people leave. So you stay strong, even when it's killing you. Research shows that parentified children develop what's called defensive self-reliance. They don't just avoid vulnerability, they're terrified of it. Their nervous system learned that showing weakness leads to rejection, so they protect themselves by never letting anyone in. Sign 5. You have trouble setting boundaries. You were taught that your job was to accommodate, to adjust, to make things easier for everyone else. Your boundaries didn't matter. Your needs didn't matter. What mattered was keeping the peace, making things work, being the easy one. So now you say yes when you mean no. You tolerate behavior you hate. You let people cross lines because calling it out feels mean. You overextend yourself constantly because saying no feels selfish, and you resent everyone for it, but you still can't stop. You agree to plans you don't want. You help people you don't like. You give time you don't have. Because the mature child learned that having boundaries made you difficult, that protecting yourself made you bad, that your comfort mattered less than everyone else's. Studies on boundary development show that children who are parentified never learn that boundaries are normal. They learn that boundaries are selfish. That good people accommodate. That love means sacrificing yourself. And they carry that into every relationship until they're exhausted and don't know why. Sign 6. You feel older than you are. You were 40 at age 12, 70 at 16. You never got to be young. You never got to be carefree. You were always the serious one, the responsible one, the one who had it together while everyone else fell apart. And now you're actually an adult and you feel ancient, like you've lived 3 lifetimes, like you're exhausted in a way that sleep can't fix. You look at people your age who are still figuring things out and you can't relate because you had to figure it out at 8. You don't have patience for immaturity even though you're the same age. You don't understand people who are still discovering themselves. You've been the same person since you were 10, because you had to be, because there wasn't room to be anything else. Psychologists call this accelerated maturity. Children who are forced to grow up fast don't just act older, they feel older. Their brain developed in crisis mode. They skipped developmental stages. They went from child to adult with nothing in between. And they can never get those years back. Sign 7. You attract people who need fixing. You don't date partners. You date projects. You don't make friends. You make charity cases. You're drawn to broken people who need saving, not because you're codependent, but because that's the only kind of relationship your childhood taught you how to have. You were the fixer, the savior, the one who made everything okay, and now you seek out people who need that. People who are a mess, people who can't handle their own life, people who need you to parent them. Because being needed feels like love, because fixing people feels like purpose. But here's the problem. Those relationships exhaust you. They drain you. They take and never give back, and you know it. but you can't leave. Because leaving someone who needs you feels like abandonment, like you're doing to them what was done to you. Research on attachment patterns shows that parentified children often develop compulsive caregiving attachment. They don't feel safe in relationships unless they're needed. Unless they're fixing someone. Unless they're the strong one. Because equal partnership feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels dangerous. Sign 8. You don't know who you are outside of being useful. Your entire identity was built around being helpful, being responsible, being the one who had it together. You defined yourself by what you did for others, not by who you were, because you were never allowed to just be. Now someone asks what you like to do and you freeze. What are your hobbies? You don't know. What makes you happy? You're not sure. Who are you when you're not fixing something or helping someone or being productive? You have no idea. You feel lost when you're not needed. You feel worthless when you're not useful. You don't know how to exist without a role, without a purpose, without someone depending on you. Because the mature child never learned that they have value just for existing. They learned that value has to be earned through service, through sacrifice, through being more than they should have had to be. Studies show that parentified children often struggle with identity formation. They spend so much energy becoming what others need that they never figure out who they are. And as adults, they feel empty, like they're playing a role, like they don't actually have a self underneath all the performance. The truth about being the mature one. Here's what nobody tells you. Being the mature child wasn't your fault. You didn't choose it. You were put in a position where you had to grow up fast or everything would fall apart. And you did what you had to do. You survived. You were strong when no one else could be. You held it together when everything was chaos. But you deserved better. You deserved to be a child, to be taken care of, to have your needs met instead of meeting everyone else's. And the fact that you survived doesn't mean it was okay. The fact that you're strong doesn't mean you should have had to be. Those 8 signs aren't personality traits. They're survival patterns, and you can change them. You can learn to ask for help, to set boundaries, to be vulnerable, to let yourself be taken care of. It won't be easy because your nervous system learned the opposite, but it's possible. You don't have to be the mature one anymore. You don't have to be responsible for everyone. You don't have to have it together all the time. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to need things. You're allowed to just be. The child who had to grow up too fast deserves to finally rest, to finally be taken care of, to finally let go of the weight they've been carrying since they were too young to carry it. And you deserve that too. So tell me, were you the mature one as a child? Which of these 8 signs hit hardest? Drop it in the comments. Let's find our people. And if this resonated, subscribe. The next video is about people who feel guilty for having needs. And it's not about being needy. It's about survival. You'll want to watch that. Click it.